Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank, a special Christmas week edition as we are set to wrap up 2022 with still a football game to play. To wrap up the season, it'll be on January the 8th, 2023, which I'm sure we'll dive into why the game is on Sunday and all that kind of good stuff. Kolpack, how's your shopping list? Are you good, or you still have stuff to do?
Well, I think we're done. I don't know. Are you ever done? It's like recruiting. It's a year-round thing. I swear to God.
Oh man. Well, we'll get into the signing day post-mortem as well, as that was held yesterday. I guess, and if you missed our National Signing Day show, you can check it out, inforum.com, and listen to our podcast. It was good stuff. We had Matt Entz actually join us. That's the first time, by the way, we've had the head football coach in the 10-plus years we've done it. We got the actual head coach on the show.
So how did that happen? Did you pay him? Or was he getting?
I just asked.
NIL from us?
I just asked, and he said sure. So there you go.
Wow.
So it's
not
as
a
simple
Hot
as that.
Mike T-shirt or anything.
I promised him a Kolpack and Izzo nickel T-shirt. How about that?
Oh, hey, one of those coming out. I heard they might be in the works.
Oh,
and if they are in the works, I better be in front. And you better be in the back of the T-shirt.
Well, yes, by winning the nickel this year, absolutely. What a great late Christmas present for everybody out there. If you were so interested, so give me your thoughts now. Post mortem plus one on what the Bison got on their signing day class for 2023.
Well, and I'm with Jay on this. I like the linemen from the Twin Cities. I think that's an area that it's not really sexy. You're not getting the 4-3 burner. You're not getting the all-world quarterback, although who knows, maybe Trey Drake might develop into that guy, but right now he didn't have any FBS offers,
Yep.
right, to my knowledge.
Correct.
So, it's not like out recruiting all these guys for Easton Stick or Cole Payton for that matter. But you win with linemen. I mean, you got to win up front. And so with the Lewinsky kid, let's start right there.
Yeah.
Great bloodlines. I like his pedigree. I liked his interview with you this morning. Was kind of a mature guy, I think, already.
No doubt.
And so that's a great start. Bo Johnson, figure he'll be 6'5", 300 before long, right? You kind of get him a little lean and build on him. So. Anyway, that just you got to get some good guys from the Twin Cities every year. You just do. That's a staple. It's like a part of the formula, if you will. It looks like any other class, really. I mean, you got guys who are on good teams. You got team captains. You got guys who are pretty long. I mean, you got to be fast.
The one thing that'll stand out, and I'll add to that on the Twin Cities guys. The one guy, Keenan Wilson, is not from a high school powerhouse. Egan football has been bad. He made them good this past season. They actually broke some losing streaks against schools down in the Twin Cities because of him. That's one I'll circle. Let's just keep our eye on him in a couple of years. And people will ask, well, Kolpack, there are no wide receivers on this class. And simple as they added 5 guys last year in wide receiver that all redshirted and they're not graduating any wide receivers off the 2023 team, their 22 team. So that's the simple reason there. And the guys they got last year, they all believe are going to make an impact on next season.
That's the thing called roster management.
Yeah.
And roster management is a huge issue, especially during the pandemic era now with guys coming back. And, what is it, 6 now with TaMerik apparently announcing? He hasn't really announced it, but Matt Entz made a strong implication that TaMerik Williams will be back next season. And so there's 6 scholarships you got to account for out of your 63. So you can't – it's hard to have a huge class, right? And then with a transfer portal, you can bring in guys readily more available, more easily. That's all part of it. Transfer portal is right now, in my opinion, an absolute train wreck. And it's not a train wreck for the guys that are going places in football. It's a train wreck for the guys who think they're going places and they end up with nothing.
And there's more of that than we know. I think that the numbers are still going to be, I think, readily available over the next calendar year, that we're going to see that there are a heck of a lot more players that end up not playing at all than end up finding a spot, certainly at the Power 5 level. I think you're going to end up seeing a heck of a lot less in Division II and Division III, personally, going forward.
Well, probably. It's a little skewed in one sense where there's guys that just quit and don't play.
Correct.
And they would have quit and not played anyway. So
right.
you have to have, there's a faction of those guys, but there's a faction of guys pretty large who are going to the transfer portal because they think they get a better deal on the other side. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, once the data over maybe 5-6 years is more readily available and easily dissected, I think you're going to see fewer and fewer guys go into the portal, and especially now that when the COVID years are over, which would be what, in 3 years?
We still have a couple of years left. Yes,
still have a couple of years left of COVID years of eligibility. Once that is done with, and we get rid of that part of the eligibility equation, it'll be harder for a guy to go in after his junior year with 1 year remaining. It's easier when he comes in now. I'm a junior. I played 3 years. I got 2 years of eligibility, and it just makes it easier for a program to say, okay, we'll hopefully get him into the mix next year, and then by year 2, he'll know our system in and out. Now it's a little, when you need 2 to 3 years, right? In football, we think.
Yep.
Missouri State struggled with that this year.
No doubt. Southern Illinois did too. Southern Illinois actually had more transfers than most state, and obviously that they won 5 football games this year, and they were uber talented. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, I don't know if those teams will have to simplify their systems going forward when you take so many transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Football is not like basketball. You just can't draw 5 guys, do a screen and roll, and go to the hoop. It's just so much more complex than that. And it takes 11 guys on the same page, and you got to work it. It's a feel thing. It's just so much more complicated than basketball.
Now, on the transfer portal, NDSU officially has 2 guys. Hunter Zenzen, defensive end from Barnesville, Mr. Football finalist in 2020 that spent the last 2 years at Iowa State. He'll have 3 years of eligibility here in Fargo. The other is Marcus Sheppard, defensive back from Bowling Green. Do you know, by the way, they go by BG now? I found that out yesterday. It's not It's not BGSU. It's not Bowling Green State University anymore. It's just BG. So
just BG.
Yeah. I found that out yesterday because I kept hearing the announcers say that. So it's just BG. I don't know if that's after their upset of PJ last year.
Nebraska Omaha anymore, or University of Kansas City, Missouri Kansas City. It's Kansas City and Omaha.
Yeah. Sheppard's played 3 years at Bowling Green, so he'll have 2 years of eligibility, and that's a spot with the departure of Marquis Siegel you look at. And defensive end, Kolpack with Spencer Wagee moving on, that's a spot where the Bison are, I wouldn't say green, but they certainly don't have a senior among the group after Wagee moves on, so that's something to keep an eye on. They were hopeful for Blake Peterson, also from Iowa State, from Beresford, South Dakota. I was told early on that was looking promising, but it appears that may have flipped to what a couple sources told me, that South Dakota State, which is where his dad played, that likely he's going to end up going there.
Well, good for the Jacks.
Yeah.
And, the Jacks are going to be loaded next year. I think the Bison are going to be loaded next year. What's that say for the rest of the FCS next year?
Not great.
Things aren't going to change much. They're not.
Nope. Well, that's kind of what we thought, that the top 4 may be the 4 that we thought. I don't know if Montana's going to enter the equation, but and we saw the gulf between Montana State and South Dakota State is still very wide. Very wide.
It is. It is wide, and it's not getting any narrower in the next year. It's just not.
Well, you mentioned the TaMerik Williams news, which is news, that we're asking. I asked Matt Entz just about Williams' status for the championship game, and then Ross Uglin from the Bison Report followed up with about him moving on, and Entz broke some news that, because we were all under the impression, and TaMerik went through the senior day introduction, that this was going to be it. It was going to try the NFL, that apparently the discussion in recent days was for him to come back and use that extra year of eligibility. So, Kolpack, that would mean, as long, and granted, stuff can still change between now and, heck, the end of spring ball, that the Bison will bring back their top 2 running backs in Kobe Johnson and TaMerik Williams next season.
And they'll be veteran running backs. I'm interested to see. TaMerik didn't have an off season this year. He had that procedure done last February and really wasn't healthy until halfway through this year, I would guess. Didn't get a whole lot of carries early. So it'll be interesting to see what he has for a full off season of winter workouts. He probably won't play spring football much at all. And then summer workouts and see what he's going to be like coming back. He's going to be a load.
Oh.
Man. He could be a load.
Well, and you have those two, TK Marshall, the amount of carries. We mentioned Barika Penu has dressed and got on the field, and they really like, obviously, what they've seen from Barika. You're adding Marty Brown, the kid they signed yesterday from Creighton Prep in Omaha. That's the group of running backs that'll be for the Bison backfield in 2023. And like you mentioned, they needed all of them. They needed almost everybody this season.
Yep, and I think Penu will have another year under his belt. I think he needs to take another step forward. Fullback is going to be interesting. Losing Lipke, I think they are looking. I mean, you get spoiled with the quarterbacks NDSU's had, and the fullbacks they've had, and when you get a guy who maybe is not NFL potential, you almost scratch your head. It's like, oh, but he's still there. I mean, they're still good. I mean,
well, yeah, Brosio and Hofstad have both been really good, I thought.
Yeah. So, but it starts with defense, and they'll have to replace James Kaiser, which I think they can.
Wagey.
And the safeties.
Yep. That's going to be tough on the back end with Tutsi and Weber moving on. The guys
Albert
that the guys we know that are coming back, though, for the extra year, Jalen Sundell, Julian Wodarczyk, Zach Mathis, mentioned Kobe, Jake Kubis, Jaden Price, Tony Pierce, Jake Cava, Luke Waters. That's pretty good. Those are not minor pieces to this football team.
No, they're not. And you forget about Cava because he got hurt earlier in the season.
Right.
And he was I think this was going to be his year. He came on last year toward the end, and especially in the playoffs. And I think this would have been a fantastic year for him. So interested to see what he does next year. And I look at a guy like Pierce. They need to find a bigger guy there, don't you think? They need to find the.
That's what they're hopeful that Peterson was, and obviously that didn't pan out there. You're right. I don't know where those guys don't grow on trees like the Braden Thomases out there. I think Loshaka Rokes has made a nice step. I think they need to see that. Cole Menz has played well, but again, 6'2" at that spot. 6'3". They really like Kelton McCaslin, who is a true freshman, but he's a true freshman. He's 6'5". I mean, he needs a whole thing of spring ball, but he's still a step away.
Maybe he gets to 250, 260.
What about our guy Dylan Hendricks? He's at 6'3". He's 240, 243. I mean, he's made nice steps since he's gotten healthy at the middle part of this season.
Yeah, they'll have experience there. There's no question. Yeah. They'll have some players, and they'll have some players on the interior. All those guys are back on the interior. Javier and Dutenheffer and
Heisman. Yep.
They've been better late in the year,
and they get Eli Mostart potentially. I mean, you figure
about Eli Mostart,
Eli and Will Mostart healthy for next season. Just going back to what you were talking about the safety spot with the departures of Tutsi and Weber. Is Dom Jones a fit just to go right back there? Remember, Dom played a ton in the spring of 20. People forget he played. Heck, he started in the spring of 21 when Weber was hurt, and I think he had 3 interceptions, Kolpack. He was a good player on the back end of the defense.
Well, I think he's a really good player, and I think he would start in most teams in the FCS for sure. Probably certainly group of fives.
That's a guy.
I think he's that talented.
You got to hang on to. You know what I mean? I mean, hopefully the Bison coaching staff, I'm sure, with it being from Georgia, you worry about that. Reggie King's another guy to keep an eye on. Redshirt freshman at the safety spot that they like a lot, that potentially could be the guy. But there's going to be open competition.
Reggie King, 6'3", 210. I mean, that's a good looking safety.
Yeah, they got to keep an eye on that. But that's certainly for our future conversations there, for spring ball and beyond. But just that's what they have coming back. The TaMerik deal is a big deal, and that should not be glossed over. What they have now on the injury side of things. Speaking of the FCS championship game, that it looks like TaMerik Williams will be able to play. Luke Wirtz will be able to go, who has not played he got injured in the Montana game, so he missed the Samford and Incarnate Word. I think that's a big deal Just that we talked about finding one guy at the middle linebacker spot. Turns out the rotation was as valuable as it could have been with him and Kubitz there.
I think with Wirtz, it's a big deal on special teams.
Yeah,
because
you're
he's
right.
been a great special teams players for at least 2 years now, and those guys don't grow on trees either. You can't take that for granted. I mean, kickoff coverage, it's more than just going down and cover, and you got to have an understanding of how returns work and getting in your right lane and getting in a position to tackle. I think it's more complicated than just running down and tackling.
Entz told us yesterday after the press conference, the group of us that assembled around, Loshaka Rokes is questionable. They're not sure about his status. He had his shoulder injured twice in the game against Incarnate Word, so an already banged-up defensive line could lose another guy there. But they expect Kobe Johnson, Raja Nelson, Cole Payton, and Will Mostert to be back against South Dakota State. And then the bombshell was that Bigfoot is back practicing, and that's Eli Mostert. Not with the white jersey, Kolpack, with the green jersey, that he is out there in contact drills right now. We're recording this on Thursday, the 22nd. This will be the last day they practice for. They break up for 4 days for the holiday, but Eli's been out there for the last couple days.
Yeah, well, that tells me he's playing, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer if he's got the green jersey. Big deal. He didn't play in the first game against South Dakota State, but neither did Tucker Kraft. So what's a big deal?
Well, let me ask. Let me throw you at that. And I'll say, actually, I'll change it up by you. What's a bigger deal that who didn't play that could potentially play? Kraft not playing and now playing in this game, or Lipke, who did play the first time and not playing this time?
For sure, Kraft, because he's such a weapon and he's an NFL prospect, and to have that guy out there. With Lipke, you can find other ways to make up for his departure and his not being there.
I'll disagree with you. I think Lipke's a bigger deal. For the Bison offense looks more limited to me since he has been out. Especially, you look at the last couple weeks, his dynamic ability is sorely missed. They were still humming. The Jacks were still okay without Kraft. Even though the Holy Cross
you're right.
game,
they have Hines is pretty good.
Right.
You're right.
And they still have the Yankees, and I mean, they're Lamar Johnson they can throw it to. The Bison offense has been limited without Hunter Lipke in my mind.
Okay, you win that argument. I defer to you win.
But
congratulations.
To that extent, you make a great point though. Let's now, two guys that didn't play. Kraft didn't play here in Fargo, neither did Eli. Who could have the bigger impact in Frisco?
Oh, toss up. But how many plays is Eli?
That's
play?
Right. That's the rub on it. How many? He hasn't played since September 10th.
So I'd say it's a bigger deal that Kraft is back because he's made a difference and he has played and he has made some big plays.
Yeah, he scored the first touchdown of the game against Montana State when we were all wondering why was an SDSU getting Kraft the ball, and then the first touchdown of the game, Gronowski hit a wide open Kraft, and that was the end of that conversation. We have found out South Dakota State will be the home team. They will be on the far sideline from the press box. The Bison will be the away team and by the near side of the press box. So for those that have gone down one of the 9 times that the Bison have been there, you can at least get your bearings on it. So that means the Jacks will be in the dark jerseys. The Bison will be in the light-colored jerseys, Kolpack. They've never worn the green jerseys in Frisco. Did you know that?
I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Now,
they wear the Harvest helmet.
Well, here's the thing. They've never lost to them. And they've worn them down there, I think, the last 4 times they've played in Frisco. Do they do it again?
I would. Why wouldn't you? You can't be afraid of losing.
Well, the Jacks have not.
Combo.
Yeah, the Jacks have never lost in that white helmet that they brought out earlier this season. So maybe something's got to give.
What are they going to do?
I think they're doing the white helmets. I think SDSU is, and I think the Bison are going to wear their Harvest helmets. I do. I think they're going to shy away on that. I am interested in your thoughts as we get ready for trip number 10 on the crowd dispersal of what we're going to see. Will we see a 50-50 split? Will we see more Jackrabbit fans than Bison fans? What say you on that?
Well, maybe. I've always, in the last 3 trips down there, I've been waiting for the big year where there's not going to be as many Bison fans. And because they've been there so often and you hear, I've done that 2-3 times, I don't need to go back. So I'm waiting for one of these years where it's just going to be a noticeable drop. I didn't see that last year. I thought maybe it'd be last year, especially with COVID still part of the mix. I did not see that last year. I still saw 60, 70% fans in the stands being NDSU fans, right?
Yep.
It's about 65, 70%.
I thought last year was like 65, 35, 60, 40. There was Montana State they had a good turnout, I thought, last year.
So, I don't know, maybe it's closer to 50-50, or maybe South Dakota State has more.
Well,
it's still new to South Dakota State. It's still a new thing for them.
Well, does the matchup, for the people you know and you've talked to, does that spur more people to go, Bison fans? Because it's the Jacks, that maybe they were on the fence? Do they decide to go?
I don't think so, because they've seen them so often anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that opponent for the national title game will necessarily get you off the fence, if you're wondering.
Yeah.
I would think like a JMU game or something matchup would maybe get you off the fence, but the Bison see the South Dakota State so often, twice a year usually.
Well, in the even number of years, we've gotten to count on it now that they play twice a season now, and that's what I'm intrigued about. You bring a great point though, that it's still new, and for SDSU, it was in May. Kolpack was at the championship of the spring season, and that we know what we think about that this is, the quote unquote the real time to do it. That's what I think SDSU will be well represented. I do. I'm just interested if Bison fans did their usual, let's buy them in August when the tickets went on sale, how many were actually available, and they got the head start because they played the game Friday night too.
True, but I didn't hear that was a big deal, though. You remember when you used to hear so much about tickets?
I do. I remember vividly.
You
did stories all the time. No, not at all.
I didn't either.
Yeah, that'll be really, really interesting when we get down there to see what the actual dispersal is of Jackrabbit fans to Bison fans on this one. I am really intrigued about that.
It would help if the weather was better in the last few years.
No doubt about it.
I mean, I'm sure Bison fans have been there in the last 5 years.
Gosh.
Going, well, it's not exactly 80 and sunny.
So the last nice day was the Eastern Washington game. Remember? And the 2 days leading up to it were terrible. And then finally, remember, the weather broke on Friday, and we had a beautiful day on Saturday. Then the last 2 times the Bison have been there in 2020, remember, it was snowing when the game started against James Madison. The sun came out at the end. And then last year, it was just brutal for the Montana State game. It was nasty, championship day.
Exactly. And so I'm just wondering if that's going to play a factor we're due for a nice day. Remember the first day we went down there in 2011?
Oh, man.
We flew down on a Wednesday, and we're having dinner that night in our shorts outside. And we could get used to this. Well, never.
No, never again.
Yeah,
I've never not had my coat on down there. I can tell you that in the repeating times that we have traveled down there. Have you got a lot of questions? I get this because I'm in television, but I'm interested for the people that you talk to about people asking why the game is on Sunday. Have you heard that a lot?
Not a lot. No, I haven't, but I think everybody knows it's TV.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has paid attention, and I think your story on that got a lot of traction, I know, on Inform.
And I am interested to see because I was talking with Patty Viverito about this, the commissioner of the Missouri Valley, and when ESPN met with the FCS commissioners, it was a slam dunk, Jeff, because of 3 simple letters, ABC. It's network television, and you know full well there are NFL games going on, and they know they're going in this with eyes wide open that the ratings are going to be what they are, but ESPN, Jeff, has just got to be licking its chops. It's North Dakota State and South Dakota State. They got the 2 best possible teams, including NDSU. You saw the rating for the game against Incarnate Word. I was wrong on this. It beat the 2 bowl games that played on that Friday on ESPN, and it was on ESPN too.
Yeah, that surprises me, doesn't it?
It does.
And maybe that's part of the, it's the playoff atmosphere. It's NDSU's brand.
It's the name, playoffs. Man. It is. It's the name, and I think that's why I don't know. I doubt they will equal the rating they got on ABC. I think it was 2.6 when they played James Madison, and because they weren't going up against the NFL. I'm interested to see what they get, though. I'm not going to put a prediction out yet. I'm going to wait till we get to championship week. But I'll be really interested to see how many people are watching this game.
So what NFL games are that Sunday?
Well, it's the final week of the regular season, so it's all division games. Yeah. And there are going to be games that are dogs because there's going to be teams that are not going to the postseason, and others that are going to be for division titles and postseason bursts. Now, typically, ESPN's going to take 2 games and put them on Saturday. So they're down, what's the inventory? 16. So it'll be 14 games. You got 1 on Sunday night, so there's 13. You're going to have about 8 or 9 games of that early window, that noon window. We don't, and the NFL will change that the week of who's going to play when. So
we won't know until the week of.
Right. And so there'll be some dog games, and if the Vikings get their game flexed to Saturday, that would be ideal for Bison fans and Jackrabbit fans around here.
Well, in the Midwest, for sure.
Absolutely.
That guarantees you eyeballs all over the 3-4 state area.
Absolutely. Not that the ESPN has any sway on that, the NFL, but that'd be interesting if the Viking game, I think they play the Bears the final week of the season. So there's a perfect game, Jeff. The Vikings have everything clinched, and the Bears are out of it. That's a game that it's a dog. You know what I mean? There's not a ton at stake unless somehow the Eagles were to fall on their face here over the last 2 games of the season, which we don't expect to happen there. Also, out of my interview with Patty Viverito, before we wrap up this pod, and we're going to do another one before we get closer to before we leave for Texas, she mentioned about potential change to the postseason format. I asked her about the expansion of the postseason with the transformation committee, because remember that's on the table for all NCAA sports. And she said that's been tabled. They're more looking at potential expansion of the seeding 1 through 16, whereas the top 8 would stay the same. They would get the first round bye, and then seed 9 through 16, and they would host in the first round. What do you make of that?
Love it. Absolutely love it. Takes away all the complaining, bitching, and moaning about who's going to get the first round.
Well, I don't know if it takes away all the bitching and moaning, but it would help.
It would help. Well, it's cut and dry.
Yes.
It's none of this bid system and who's got the higher bid and, wham. So it's just more, I want to say, transparent.
Yep.
It's a more transparent process that, hey, you're at the top 16, you see, that's it. Done deal. And
it would take away the mess that surrounded the UND Weber State game with the bidding process. I am in favor of that. If they're not going to seed 1 to 24, this is at least the next best thing that they could do on that.
And if you didn't get seeded, say you're 17, 18, well, win more games, boys.
Right.
You have no right to complain.
Yep. I don't know how realistic it is to happen for 23, but something to keep our eyes on as we go forward. I did ask her about Murray State as well. And we'll post the podcast. You can check it out at inforum.com. And the President's Council met with Murray State after this season to say, hey, where are things at? Knowing full well they won 2 football games. They are progressing, according to what Patty said, to add more revenue and more structure to the football program. But this is going to be, everybody's going to keep their eye. It's not just going to be in Fargo. I think everybody from Brookings, Grand Forks, Cedar Falls, Normal on how this is going to go, Jeff, because it's not going to be pretty. I don't know if they're going to win a game next season. Western didn't win a game this year, and they're an established team in the league.
Yeah, and that's going to be a situation where I think this league is going to regret. But the problem is basketball runs the show, and this is a basketball move. We know that. They wanted the racers in for basketball because it's a pretty good brand in basketball. But in football, I mean, what do you mean they're putting in more resources and money? Yeah, tell me. Yeah. Where? What are you doing?
Right. That we got to see it. That's the thing. If it's hiring more staff, is it expansion of the stadium? That's what we got to see. And I don't know if it's going to be readily evident in 2023. I don't know.
Obviously not. If they didn't do it this year, there was no strides this year whatsoever. They went back.
I would think. Well, certainly they did on the football field. I mean, they lost to Lindenwood. Lindenwood is a new Division I team. They're transitioning up to Division I. That's not ideal. That's not what you're looking for.
Yeah, I walked around their stadium. It's smaller than Concordia.
Yeah, I mean that's not. And all this bragging can be done, and it will be. And the Valley rightfully so should do it, Jeff, that it's the top FCS league. We've got the 2 teams from our conference playing for the national championship, but just don't look over here because we added one of the worst FCS teams in the country to our conference as well. You know what I mean? It's really a total oxymoronic thing here. It really is.
And the problem is going to be, and you ask NDSU athletic department, here's the problem. Murray State comes here next year.
Yes.
Western Illinois comes here next year. And you're trying to sell tickets.
It's not going to help on that. Not one iota on that. Happy holidays, my man. Have a great Christmas, and we'll catch up after the holiday, okay?
All right. Happy holidays. Good to see you, Dom.
Jeff Kolpack joining us, of course, for our Kolpack and Izzo podcast. Check out Inforum.com. No breaks for us. We're still going to slave away here through the holiday, and, of course, get you ready next week as we get our coverage amped up and ready. I believe each of the teams will be meeting with the media on Wednesday. That's the 28th. And then set for a trip down to Texas between South Dakota State and North Dakota State. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. Thanks so much for listening, everybody, to the Kolpack and Izzo podcast. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you around the bend.